You're listening to the Jim Boy Star Podcast, episode 91, titled Dragon Warrior for Life, Part 3, guest starring Kenshin 1913. Welcome everyone to Dragon Warrior for Life, the miniseries about Dragon Warrior 4, and we are on Chapter 3. I have Pete, aka Kenshin 1913, with me again. How are you doing, Pete?
Doing pretty good.
Alright, there's a lot going on in this chapter. We're buying things, we're selling things, we're doing the 9 to 5, we're breaking out prisoners, we're talking to foxes. Tell us a little about Talon in general in chapter 3 before we get on to the main story.
Alright, so pretty much chapter 3 is about Talon. He's a dude, he's a dad. All right, he's a guy who gets up every day, goes to work, does his thing, but of course, as most people, he has a dream of eventually owning his own shop and being his own man and his own merchant. And he's a pretty cool and interesting character because he is similar to Ragnar in the essence of he can only attack, pretty much. He doesn't really have any spells or anything like that. But he's not as strong as Ragnar, so it's an interesting way to have to deal with this chapter.
Mm-hmm. All right, so and it should be noted that apparently Talon is so popular that he got a spin-off.
Right. So his apparently his full name is Torneko Talon, and so he what is it? He does have his own spin-off because he was such a popular character that they made a I forget what the name of the games are, but pretty much it's like a random dungeon game where you go down dungeon floors. Rogue, there we go. It's a roguelike game where you go down floors and every floor is randomized and you have to collect treasures and then go back up and this, that, and the other.
Right.
And they've actually made let's see, like four different Talon games, so it's pretty cool.
That's just ridiculous. I knew there was at least 2, but I didn't know there were 4.
Yeah.
And Talon, unlike the others, has his name been changed that much?
Not really. Talon or Torneko, it pretty much is what he goes by, and yeah, his name didn't really get changed too much.
I guess they were like, why change a winning formula since you're getting like 3 other games with the guy in it? And
exactly.
An appearance, I believe, in Dragon Quest VIII. Didn't he appear?
Yes, he does. He does appear in Dragon Quest VIII in the tournament area, in the monster arena.
Right. All right.
Yeah, you actually have to fight some monsters that he had.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
All right, so let's start off. Let's go with the story. Here we go.
Okay, so in the beginning of this story, you get the great cliffhanger from Chapter 2, and in this, you start off as Talon, who dreams about opening up his own shop. But sadly, he works a 9 to 5 type of job where you have to pretty much get up every day, your wife gives you a big old kiss, gives you some food, and you're on your way. So you have to deal with the hodum of work. Every day you go to this one shop in the town where you live at Lakanaba, and you pretty much have to have people buy stuff and sell stuff, and you pretty much get like a sort of a commission. Although this chapter I like because of the way that it is so different than any of the other chapters. Because Talon is a merchant, so it's interesting that you can have a 9 to 5 job. It's really cool. Some of the other stuff that we do a little later, but so you have to work here, and there's a way that you can get some really good armor because if someone sells you an item or whatever, so there's 3 items you can buy. You can buy a club, a copper sword, and a whip. At least that's what it was in the NES version.
Mm-hmm.
So pretty much you can buy these, but if people sell you something that's different than those 3, and you don't sell them to anybody else, you can actually buy them later on, which is kind of neat. And you can use that to your advantage when eventually Talon decides he's going to leave. So at the end of the day, Talon finishes his work, and if you don't go home right to your wife, you can go around town and talk to people. And like there's a day and night cycle, people tend to say different things at night, and so people are telling Talon about how like there's an iron safe that you can go get. They're talking about how you can open up your own shop maybe if you head south towards Endor, which is the area where we're near. We're pretty much just north of Endor, and this area is pretty much typically like a Scottish. I think it's Scottish again. They gave him accents again. Talon apparently is like a Scottish guy or something like that. And
I think you're forgetting about how you can push the guy to church.
Right. Yes. So yeah, there's also other ways to earn money rather than just going to the store and being a clerk. Pretty much, there's this one old guy. I think his name's Tom or something, or Old Tom or whatever, and he wants you to pretty much just push him to the church because he can't get there anymore. So you push him there, and he gives you like maybe 5 gold. I'm not sure how much, but it's not enough to do anything with. But I guess if you do that every day, it will eventually accumulate. But pretty much what Talon learns when he's walking out on the town after work is he learns about all the stories outside the village about how, there's great riches and rewards and everything. So you can continue to work as long as you want and collect enough money to buy gear before you set out. But usually I only work maybe 2-3 days. And then you pretty much go out into the world. And it has a pretty fun like overworld theme, which is pretty cool. And pretty much the first thing that you want to do is head north to the cave of Lakanaba, which houses the iron safe. But this cave's pretty cool because it actually has these like boulder puzzles and stuff. And even I think this is the same place where they have water, where it's like a water thing. So it's pretty much like Indiana Jones and the Temple of Indiana Jones and what's Raiders of the Lost Ark. Sorry, Raiders of the Lost Ark. You remember that part in Raiders of the Lost Ark where he had to grab the jewel in the very beginning and he had to put something the same weight there? Mm-hmm. There's a part like that in this cave, which is pretty cool.
Now, what does the iron safe do again?
The iron safe is pretty much an item, and it's only well, you could get it in the 5th chapter, I guess. But anyways, it's an item that, like, let's say you end up dying in battle, it'll actually save the gold. You know how when you die, when you die in these games, they cut your gold in half? Well, if you have the iron safe, you don't lose that half of gold. You actually keep it, which is very important for this chapter because you need a lot of money.
Right, yeah, that's true. It's all about earning money for this chapter, guys.
Yeah, yes, it is. It's all about money. And one other thing that's really different from this chapter is that whenever you're fighting monsters, even if they're very easy, sometimes they will drop really interesting things. Like if you're fighting a slime and then somehow they drop like a chain sickle, or they drop like a friggin' what was it, half plate armor or something like that. You're like, holy crap! So a lot of the times monsters will be dropping stuff, and so your inventory is going to get filled up fast. Mm-hmm. So this game actually is way better when you're playing on a remake because you have that infinite bag. Otherwise, you're going to have to do a lot of item management. So anyways, we find the safe, and we take it, and we leave. And then we go back to our village where you learn more about... There's this castle to the south called Malamo, whatever. Anyways, they're planning on invading Endor, right? But they can't do it because the bridge is out. So as you travel south to go to this place, you run into this village in the middle of a forest called Foxville, which is an odd name for a town. Anyways, you pretty much meet up with the guy who fixes the bridge called DeGardi. And he pretty much just says he's going to marry this chick in town, and he's not going to bother with being an architect anymore. So you're like, okay, that's kind of odd. And then when you go to the item store and they try to sell you a broadsword for 10 gold, you're like, yeah, that's very odd because there's no way a broadsword would cost 10 gold. So you fall asleep at the inn and you wake up and everything's gone. Magic, you know what I mean?
Yeah, and what happened to your broadsword?
Your broadsword, I believe, turns into a cypress stick or something like that. Or a bamboo stick or something. Okay. And pretty much it's just junk.
Yeah.
So yeah, you're definitely fooled there. So what ends up happening is you end up going to Balmero, and you find out there's a couple things going on. One, the guy who's going to build the bridge is missing. Two, if you get there at night, the prince is missing as well.
Well,
So
this
if you
castle can't seem to keep their shit together.
No, they cannot seem to find anybody. So if you end up going in the morning, you find out that the prince wants to talk to you, but the guards kick you out. And he's like, "Come at night behind the weapon shop." And so you pretty much come at night and you talk to the prince, and he says that he's in love with the princess of Endor, right?
Right.
And you're like, and he wants you to deliver a message for him. So he gives you something, a royal scroll or whatnot. But we have to, but you can't go there until the bridge is fixed. So we have to figure out a way to get the bridge builder guy back.
Right. That's
So
the
this is the part. Oh, go ahead, Jim.
No,
What
I
were
was
you gonna say?
just gonna say like that. So, like we've met DeGardi, and I think at this point we either put two and two together, or they just tell us that he's the guy that they're waiting for.
Yes.
And by the way,
Yes.
his new name is one of the worst names I think I've ever experienced in the entire Dragon Quest series. The DeGardi's name in the remakes. Would you like to tell people what his name is?
Oh, I don't remember.
You know, oh God, okay, I'll say it then. It is the worst. In the remakes, his name is Archie Otect.
Oh my God! Wow. Wow, that's bad.
Yeah. So
I forgot how bad that was.
Yeah, I mean, later on in this chapter, I'll point out another worse one that they did in the remake for someone. But
Yeah.
anyway, so he goes. So yeah, the bridge is down, and what do we do now? With the bridge being down?
Tulun pretty much is going to have to play matchmaker, but before he does that, he goes to the prison where one thing I forgot to mention, back in your hometown, that pretty much old Tom said that his son is missing and might have been arrested for something. So we're here at this town, and we find out that Tom's son is actually in the prison. And so what you have to do is sort of like a Solid Snake kind of thing, and dodge the guards so they can't see you, and you give the son a wing of wyvern, which lets him go back to the village.
You know,
and so
the more I'm thinking about it, maybe that's what happened to Santeem. They gave everyone a wing of wyvern.
right, yeah, that could have been something that happened, and they all warped to this place that they want them to go to because they're all missing.
Right.
Right. So we do this, and Tom's son's like, if you ever need anything, come back to town, and I'll help you out. So we need to figure out how to get DeGardi out of the thing. So we go back to our hometown, Lacanaba, and pretty much Tom's son lets you borrow his dog, which is pretty cool. And they say he's a great fox hunter. So you kind of like put together, okay, Foxville, fox hunter. Okay, let's check that town out. And so you check it out with the dog, and the dog goes right to the mayor of the town and pretty much reveals that the whole town is a big ruse or a big magic spell done by these foxes
Right.
to try to keep people there.
This is like
And-
Hargon. This is like Hargon in fox mood.
Right. Except it's a little more harmless, but it's still
That's true.
kind of interesting. And the interesting thing about foxes is, like, when I was a kid, I was like, why foxes? Well, apparently in Japanese culture, foxes are kind of like tricky animals, and they kind of like morph into other forms and try to trick people and stuff like that. So they're like sneaky kind of things.
Right. So now that the town has been revealed, I can't
Right,
believe
and
I can't believe I'm gonna say this to you, but what does the fox say?
The fox pretty much is like, let me go, and it's kind of like a but thou must situation.
Mm.
And he's like, oh, I won't do it again. You know, classic little guy in any of those games. It's like, oh, I won't do it again. And he leaves behind, if you say yes, of course, the fox gives you a full plate armor. which is one of the best armors in this section, although Talon cannot equip it. It's amazing. I can't believe this fox was carrying this armor around. And then finally DeGardy's like, okay, I'm going to go back and fix the bridge now. Because he's like, I was under some weird spell.
Well, yeah, and even if he wasn't under a spell, even if, like, he remembers everything that happened, it's a little embarrassing to bring up again. That I was basically going to throw my entire life away for some girl that turned out to be a fox.
Exactly. And so at this point, if you want, you can bring the dog back. You can actually have the dog for pretty much almost about the remainder of the chapter. But anyways...
Is there a benefit for the dog coming at all? Or coming with you after this?
Not really. I mean, it'd be kind of neat if he was like an extra party member and he like attacked the monsters, but he really doesn't do anything.
Right.
So you go back to the Bon Mamo or whatever it's called, and you find out that DeGardy has finished the bridge and they're preparing to invade. So you're like, uh-oh, we better get across that bridge and head to Endor. So we go to Endor, and at this point you can check out stuff. The casino is actually down. There's no one there because they're, I don't know, maintenance or something. I don't know exactly. And the Coliseum is over. So you go to the princess, you read this love letter, and then the king is like, oh boy, we got to fix this before all this war happens. Mm-hmm. So he gives you a letter to give to the king of the other kingdom, and he pretty much says, if you do this for me, I'll give you the opportunity to get a shop here. So going back to the castle that wants to invade, you read this decree. And pretty much the king's like, hey, I'm not going to invade because my son, these two are in love. My son's going to be the king eventually anyways. Who cares? I'm just going to let this happen. So he's like, I'm going to get that castle in the end anyways. So they pretty much kind of have like a peace agreement, and you go back to Endor, and he gives you the king pretty much gives you the okay to open your own shop.
Can I point out something here? So, if there was an invasion, I'm pretty sure Endor would win.
Yeah, I think Endor would win too, and here's why. Because in the other castle, they're short on armor. They're short on armor so bad that they're willing to buy any armor that you collect throughout the chapter, any armor, at like double the price. So you pretty much go, there's a dude there who's like, we'll give you a lot of money for this armor. And you can say no and try to get more because it's kind of sort of random, but you should try to get a lot. So that's one way to get a lot of money. And apparently they don't have any armor. So it's like you could sell them, like even in the remake games, boxer shorts. There's a part where you get some boxer shorts, and you can literally sell them boxer shorts for like 300 gold. It's amazing. Mm-hmm. So they're so desperate. I don't think that they would have won because they're such a small kingdom compared to Endor. And Endor has they have the Coliseum, so any gladiator people that might be there, they're fighting. And their town is just bigger, so they have more citizens and
I just don't know what this king was thinking, like, I'm going to invade. Did you see... Are you aware of how big the place is going that you're going to invade?
Exactly. Endor is so big. It's crazy. There's no way they would have won.
Right.
So after Talon ends up playing like, Cupid and helping these two lovers, reunite and find each other, we have the opportunity to purchase a shop. Now, there's one place in the town that is actually, one of the guys is like, all right, I'm old. I'm done here. If you can get me 65,000 gold, I will let you have this shop. So you're like, okay, that's a lot of money. Holy God, how am I going to get all that? Mm-hmm. So one other thing you learn in the town is that there's a guy who's looking to who's looking to get this thing. It's called the Silver Statuette, and it's in a cave to the north. And so you're like, okay, I'll get that. Maybe I'll get enough money. And so at this point in this chapter, it's kind of interesting because if you have enough money, you can actually mercenaries for this chapter, which is kind of neat.
Right.
So it kind of gives you a little more strategy and stuff. There's a guy named Strom who is like a soldier, and he's pretty much like a Ragnar kind of guy. He's totally about attacking, but he's stronger than his defense is stronger than Talon, and his attack is a little bit better than Talon. And then you get a guy, his name's Laurent, who is like a poet or something like that, and he pretty much can do spells. He's really important because he can heal. And pretty much you have them, I think, overall it's 1,000 gold, and I think you get them for 5 days each. So right. So it's a good idea to pick these guys up, and then you're going to head over to this cave called the Cave of the Silver Statuette.
Mm-hmm. So now, let me take this time real quick. So this is the other name in the remake that I hate. Do you know the name of these two in the remake?
Yeah, yes I do. This one I do remember, Laurel and Hardy,
yes.
which I thought was weird.
What? Come on,
I was like,
guys.
Why? I get the combo name. Laurel and Hardy were like two comedians back in the day. But like, what?
Yeah, like what are you doing? Okay, so yeah, we're in the cave. So at any point, as a player, at any point did you wind up playing, and like all of a sudden you're in the middle of the cave and the time's up. 5 days have passed.
Oh well, no, time doesn't pass when you're in the cave. Pretty much like it goes day and night cycle. So you pretty much have. Yeah, so you pretty much have that much time, which is good because it gives you a lot of time, because at this point Talon, he might not be as strong as these two, so it's good to have some extra backup. And sadly, you can't use their item space for extra items, so it's interesting how you have to deal with the item management in this chapter. But we go to the Cave of the Silver Statuette. And the thing about this place is a lot of people end up saving a lot of the treasures here for the 5th chapter, because in the 5th chapter we're going to be around this area, and it's got some good equipment for the main character of that chapter. But that aside, usually I get all the treasure here if I can, because not only you get the treasure, you have to make sure you get the silver statuette. All the monsters that you fight, like a lot of the times, they'll drop items, so it's really, really hard to figure out what you want to hold on to as you're going through this cave. It's crazy.
Yeah.
And so this is an interesting one because it's like a 2-level thing where you have to drop water from the top level to the bottom level so that you can get on a boat and go to these different spots. It's kind of an interesting dungeon design.
Mm-hmm.
And so eventually we get the silver statuette, and you go back to this guy. But he sells it to you. He pretty much sells it to you. Okay, so it's 35,000 gold that you need. But the guy who buys it from you only gives you, I think, like 25,000 gold. So you have to come up with the other 10,000. So this is not like a get-rich-quick scheme. I'm going to own my own shop right away kind of thing. So you're kind of like, oh God, where am I going to come up with this money? Right. Well, hopefully the items that you collected throughout the cave, you're able, if any of it is armor, you would definitely go over to the guy up in
the other castle.
Yes, the other kingdom, and then sell the armor and stuff like that. So eventually you'll get the amount of money, and you're able to buy your own shop. Hooray!
Right.
Talon's dream has been fulfilled. So you buy your own shop, and you send for your family, and after that, you pretty much you're like, what should I do now? And this is where the game's kind of like interesting, because you go over to there's this cave to the west of Endor where there's this old man in there, and he's talking about how his dream was to build a tunnel from Endor to the next world, to Branca, pretty much. And he's like, I wish I could get this dream done. It would only take me 60,000 gold pieces to do it. Get the people here, do all this work, and get this all done. So you're like, okay, you know what? I'll help you out. So what you end up doing is go back to the king. The king's like, oh, nice job, Talon. You finally got a shop. What about if I put an order for you to do something? So you're like, okay. And so he gives you an order to get 7 broadswords and 7 half-plate armors.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not really ever explained why Talon wants to head the Bronca. The only thing I can think of is because he wants to be the world's best merchant.
Yeah,
Like,
or he just wants to see this guy fulfill his dream. I mean, he is pretty old.
yeah, and I think I would lean more towards that because it's like, dude, I just completed my dream of owning my own shop. I would love for this guy to finish it, and plus it would open up the world. It'd be awesome.
Mm-hmm.
So, at this point, you have to get 7 broadswords and 7 plates of half mail. But the nice thing about it is your wife is working for you, and you pretty much, whatever items that you collect, like as you're battling monsters outside or whatever, and they drop things,
Mm-hmm.
not being broadswords or half-plate armor, you can give to your wife. At this point, it's not worth going to Belamo to give the guy armor or whatever. You might as well give it to your wife because your wife always gets double the profit of whatever it was sold for.
Mm-hmm.
So that will give you a lot of money really quick. And the interesting thing about it is if you don't collect the broadswords and the half-plate armor from the monsters outside, you can buy them. So it's not as hard. But I do remember this part being a little tedious when I used to play as a kid because I was like, when are these guys going to drop these things? I just want this thing to be over with.
See, and I remember, I thought that you can just buy an Abacus of Virtue. I think that's what it was called.
Mm-hmm.
And then sell it to, let your wife sell it. And she'd actually get a really good price for it. And I mean, I remember doing the 6 and the 6 thing, but I feel like for raising money, I keep thinking Abacus of Virtue. Do you remember anything
that
with
was
this?
that was one of his weapons, I believe, that he can equip with.
But you don't remember there being like a high sell value for an Abacus of Virtue?
There might have been. I mean, anything that you got from the store anywhere and you gave it to your wife to sell, she would give you double the profit the next day, which is kind of nice.
Right. And I think for some reason I feel like I just bought a lot of Abacus of Virtues.
Yeah. Well, they could have been fairly cheap and then sold for double, and that would help make money so you can get the swords and stuff.
Right.
That could be the case.
All right.
I remember I remember having to get like half of them and then buy half of them. The broadswords, I believe, could be purchased at the invading town, Belamo or whatever, and the half-plate armors could actually be purchased in Endor, which is really weird, because it's like, why would the King of Endor want half-plate armors from Talon when he could easily get it from this other shop? But I guess he's trying to, help Talon out a little bit.
Right.
So another interesting thing, which I didn't know about until I was playing the DS / Android iOS version of it, is actually at this point I'm pretty sure you can still work. You can still work at the other excuse me, at the other shop back up in your hometown.
Oh wow, okay.
Yeah, I think you can still work there. I think up to this point I believe you can.
Huh.
So anyways, you do whatever you got to do to get those broadswords and those half-plate armors. You get the money. You go give it to the old man. The old man's like, woohoo, I can make this tunnel. He starts working on the tunnel, and he tells Talon, I'm going to, he's like, I'll send you a message when everything's done. So between that time and when he sends you a message, which isn't really that long, you can go to the casino because it's opened up. And if you went to the casino before this part, you would actually see Ragnar. He's down there, and he's talking about how he's like, "Oh, that's a shame that I just missed the tournament because I might have seen someone who might have been the hero here."
Right. Now here's where we're starting to piece together a timeline as well.
Right.
Ragnar took, it seems to me, and maybe you can correct me if I'm wrong here in my thought process. It seems to me that Ragnar took forever to get from that little shrine that we saw him in at the inn to Endor.
Yeah, it did seem like he was taking a sweet ass time getting there. I actually don't know what his deal was. What took him so long?
Yeah.
Yeah, it just seems odd. Maybe he had to go find Healy again, because Healy is actually never with Ragnar in any of these points.
Right. No, he's not.
Yeah. So you can at this point you can go gambling in the casino. Although this is probably the worst time to gamble. The best time to gamble would be with Elena and with her group, because you get the best gold to casino coins rate. It's actually very good. It's like one coin for every like 5 gold. So that's really, really good. And I think with Tulun it's like 1 coin for every 100. And I think the reason why is because it's so easy to get money with Tulun's chapter that they probably set it high, because if people bought stuff from the casino during his chapter, they could carry it on and it would be crazy.
That makes sense, yeah.
Yeah, so when you're done with gambling at the casino or whatnot, you go back to your house, and your wife pretty much says, "Oh, they sent word that the tunnel's done, and are you going out on something?" And apparently Tulun's like, "Yep, I'm gonna go and explore the world and become the best merchant there is." So she kind of just is like, "Oh, okay, yeah, I love you. I'll see you later." And Tulun goes off on his journey, and that's pretty much the end. He goes through the tunnel, and on the other side, they pretty much is like, what will become of Tulun? And, he's traveling. Will he find the rare treasures that he always wanted to find? And that's pretty much how this chapter pretty much ends.
Yeah, I mean, it's such a weird chapter, like as far as it's a very different chapters, maybe I should say, because also I believe it's in this chapter that sometimes when you run into random encounters, it's actually a merchant.
Right, yeah, which is kind of neat. And you can buy medical herbs, antidote herbs, and stuff from them, which is kind of cool. I guess that's one way of helping, like, relieve you of any type of excess items you might have that you might not want to hold on to, which is a good thing, because you get so many items from the monsters in when you're fighting in this chapter.
Right. No, I see what you're saying. No, that makes sense. That absolutely does make sense. But yeah, it's a fun chapter. It's weird because it's actually so different than chapter 2, where especially the end, like it's Tulun is like, oh, what's he gonna do next? Whereas chapter 2 was just like, what the fuck, guys?
Yeah. Yeah, this one kind of ends a little more hopeful, like, oh, Tulun's going off to fulfill his dreams and find stuff and, be the best damn merchant he can be.
Right. So, overall thoughts of Chapter 3 from you?
Well, I like this chapter, probably one of the more tedious ones, especially when you gotta get those broadswords and half plates. But overall, I think it's pretty cool because it's kind of, like you were saying, it's different because it's more of like, you having to be an actual merchant and having to buy stuff, sell stuff, get money, raise money, get your own shop, stuff like that. It's one of the only games that I can remember, or at least chapters or portions of a game that I can remember where like you literally have like a 9-to-5 job, and pretty much Tulun becomes a delinquent employee after a while, because he's just like, yeah, I'm done here, and he never comes back. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
I think it's kind of funny.
He's not even staying for his family, who made come all the way down here.
Even in the first shop, he doesn't even give his 2 weeks. He's like, I'm done. I'm done here.
Well, yeah, and surprisingly, as you mentioned, his old boss is like, yeah, you can work here still.
Yeah.
We don't know when you're ever coming back, but if you are. Yeah, I like Chapter 3. It's different also because you're not, like, on some adventure to stop evil. You're not trying to look for a loved one, like all the usual stuff that you go with. It's just very different in that respect as well. That the overall goal for this chapter is just very, very different.
You didn't feel like there was like monsters that were evil, like in this chapter where like the monsters were doing something bad. It was more like people doing something bad, like this one town or this one castle wanting to invade the other. You know what I mean?
Yeah. All right, so let's get your final plugs, and then we'll head out for this chapter of Dragon Warrior 4 Life.
So if you head to YouTube and you type in Kenshin 1913, you'll pop up with my channel. I do a lot of Let's Plays on all kinds of games. A lot, bread and butter's Dragon Warrior. If you head to Twitter or Facebook, type in Kenshin 1913, you'll find me there, and you can check out anything that I'm doing there. It's a little more exclusive content than over on like the YouTube thing where we'll actually like get in a casual conversation or whatever there. But yeah, that's pretty much it. Just Kenshin 1913 on Google. You'll pretty much mostly everything there is mine.
All right, very good. And we'll catch everyone next time for some more Dragon Warrior for Life. Thank you for taking the time out of your day to listen to the Jim Boy Star podcast. Please visit the website www.thatspodcasting.com, where you can get the latest news on all of the latest upcoming episodes of this show, and you could download the archives of previous episodes, and don't forget to subscribe on iTunes and Stitcher for the latest episodes coming right to you right when they're released. You can also follow me at www.twitter.com/JimBoyStar. This is my story, and thank you for being a part of it.